Welcome back. In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to start drawing graphics into your window and getting you ready to begin developing your own computer games in the Java programming language. So, if you followed along in our previous video, you've got a program like this in NetBeans, which, when you run it, pops up a tiny little window in the center of the screen that has a title bar that we specified in the program. Now that we have a window up, we want to put something into that window. And what we want in that window is the game that we're going to be creating. Here, mine's called Empty Window Game. I'm just quickly going to rename this. For today, I want to change this to be called Colored Window Game now, because it's not going to be empty anymore when we're done with it. Alright, so now that we've got our game program that's popping up a window, next thing we need to do is we need to make our game into something that can be added to a window. There's only certain types of things that can be added to a window. Specifically, we can only add things that are components or J components. So I'm going to specify that our colored window game here is going to be a special type of J component. And we do that by going up to this line that says public class and then the name of our game. And after the name, but before the curly brace, we type extends J component, and I'm going to use control space again. Whoops, I typed it wrong, so it's not giving me suggestions. Let's see, I spelled component wrong. Okay, here it is, J component. So now that our window game, our colored window game, is a J component, we can add it to our window. We need to do that above this line before we pack the window. So I'm going to say here, right before we pack, Aaron's game window dot add, and we're going to add into it a new instance of the game. And I'm going to use control space again just to complete this. Colored window game, and then semicolon at the end. So this creates a new instance of our game. If you remember, classes aren't really actual things yet, they're just blueprints of how to make things. And it's when we say new colored window game, that's when Java actually creates an instance of the game itself. So if we were to run this, we wouldn't see anything different yet. In fact, I'll go ahead and do that because our colored window game at this point is simply just a generic component. It doesn't have a size and it doesn't do anything to draw. So let's go about fixing that. I'm going to go here to right after the main method, after the closing curly brace for the main method, and put a new line there. I'm going to start typing the words get preferred size, and I'm going to use control space again. Oops, I was spelling it wrong. There's only one F in preferred. And if you use control space, you'll see this thing pop up. It says get preferred size, override, and dimension. We'll talk about dimension in a second. But override means that this get preferred size method is something that components can do because our game is a special type of component. And we want to customize what normal components do and have our game do something slightly different. So when I hit enter and selected that override, it created this whole new method marked up with a lot of extra stuff, which you'll learn about later on. But for now, the important part is this return line. Right now, what it's saying is it's just returning the generic value, which is the preferred size of a generic component. So let's delete that, and instead we're going to return the size that we want. So we're going to return a new dimension. I'm going to use Control Space again. And we want this version that has a width and a height parameter. And the width that I want for the window is, let's say, 600 pixels. And the height that I want is, let's say, 200 pixels. So now that we've specified the size, or a dimension, which is the type of object we use when we're specifying a size, when we run this, the window is going to pack itself around the game, and it's going to use the preferred size of the game, which I've said here is 600 by 200 pixels. So here we go. We can see it's created the area here of that size that I specified. So now that we have some area for the game, let's draw something into it. We're going to create another override method using the same steps that we did before. I start typing the name of the method down here below the last method that I've already added. And this one is called Paint Component. I'm going to start typing it, use Control Space, and here it is, Paint Component with some other stuff, override. So when I select it, it adds it here. And again, here we're customizing something that all components can do. The generic component just draws a light gray background, which is what you see when you run the game now. So we're going to customize this, and instead of doing the generic version of painting, let's delete that. We're going to do two things here. We're going to pick a color out, and we're using this variable in the parameter. Here, mine's called graphics without any vowels. In your version, it might just be called G, or sometimes G2. I'm actually just going to rename this to be called G, just to keep things simple. So now that we have this special graphics object called G, we're going to use it to set a color. We do that by saying G dot set color. And if you hit enter, it gives us an example color already, color.yellow. I'm going to choose my own color by typing color with a capital C, dot. And here's a whole list of choices that I can use. I want to use dark gray. I'm going to pick that one. And now that we've chosen a color, we can draw something. I'm going to draw the background, and I'm going to do that just by drawing a rectangle that fills the entire area. So I'll say G dot fill rect for rectangle, and this takes 4 number parameters, or integer parameters. It needs an XY coordinate of the top left corner of the rectangle, which in this case is 0, 0. And then it needs the width of the rectangle. So if we want it to fill the window, I'm going to use 600, which is the width of the window, 600. And the height is going to be 200, which we specified before was the height of the window. So when we run this now, we have a dark gray rectangle filling the entire window. If you expand it, you can see that the rectangle only fills up that much space. It doesn't go any further. So let's add a few more things. Let's start with a red rectangle. I'm going to choose a new color, G.set color, color.red. And then I'm going to say g dot fill rect, and then I'm going to give coordinates. So the coordinate of the top left corner of the rectangle I want is, let's say, 50, 50. And then the width is going to be 15 pixels. And the height is going to be, let's say, 75. And I also want to draw a circle. Let's say g dot set color. Let's have a white circle. Color dot white. So I've chosen my color for the circle. Then I'll draw it. G dot fill oval. And fill oval takes 4 parameters, just like fill rect. And these are the same parameters. We've got a coordinate for the top left corner and a width and a height. But instead of drawing the rectangle specified by those parameters, it's going to draw an oval that just barely fits inside of that rectangle. So if we give parameters for a perfect square, fill oval is going to end up giving us a perfect circle, because the diameter will be the same in both the vertical and the horizontal directions. For this circle, let's draw it at the coordinates 400, 150. And for it to be a circle, we need the width and the height to be the same. So let's see, let's make it 25 by 25. Okay, so let's run this and see what it looks like. And here it is. You can see it kind of looks a little bit like a Pong game, which conveniently we're going to be doing in a future lesson, starting to make things move and be controlled by the mouse and keyboard. But for now, you've got the tools to start creating some programs that draw graphics. Let me just show you one more thing. If you're in this paint component method, where we have this G graphics object, and you type G dot, you'll see this whole list of different things. And we only used a couple. We used fill rect, and we used fill oval, and we used down here set color. But there's a whole bunch of other things you can do, like drawing polygons, rectangles with rounded corners. You can draw arcs, which is a portion of a circle. You can draw text with drawstring. You can draw images, which we'll be covering probably in the next video. There's a whole bunch of different things you can do with this G object. I want to encourage you to just take a look around at these, maybe play around with it, or search online for some information about how to use these and figure some stuff out on your own. So that's it for today. I hope to see you next time, where we will be adding some interactivity and some animation and starting to make this into a real game. Alright, see you next time.